being an installer and actually enjoying what I do, and then realizing like, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I'm efficient. I can get the job done. I've now lucked into the same thing of the new role in the company, which is, just trying to run daily operations and try to prop up everybody around me and help our installers get jobs done more efficiently. The business, like if you're on vacation and you're on your off time and you didn't be enjoying your family or going and support your family, it's been extremely helpful knowing that I can look at my wife and look at my mother-in-law and tell them, like, don't worry about me and work.
All right, so this is number 2 of a 2-part series of us kind of questioning each other, right? So you had a little bit different history in the company than I did because you never left, and you were the youngest. How did growing up in the industry, having an older brother and dad and everything, how did that work out, like early on, like when you were younger? I don't remember that time frame very much. How was that for you? Like, was it something you just did, or was it dad enticing you more with, this is how you're going to buy stuff if you want stuff? That was like the only appeal.
Oh, I mean, definitely something I think I just kind of did, but at the same time, the big push was, I think I wanted a dirt bike, and then I think I probably wanted other stuff too at the same time, but it was the dirt bike that, from what I can recall, it was wanting a dirt bike, and then dad pretty much saying, like, you want one, then you buy it. And then also him, I think through a couple different things I probably wanted, him making me believe that, like, if I worked for it and then I had my money and then purchased it and then I had control of it, which he did a good job of, like, making me believe that. But like, now being a father myself, like, I would still want to do the same thing to my son, but at the same time, you're underneath my household. If something goes wrong, you're gonna lose the ability to use that thing. It'll still be yours,
Yeah.
but you're gonna lose the ability to use it. So that was definitely a big driving factor, is make money.
Yeah, I can very vividly remember in middle school wanting a GoPed because those were like the hot shit at the time. And that was one of the first things that I remember, like, working towards to save up my money to buy myself. And now I had the freedom to ride my GoPed to school. Which, not all the way to school. Grandma and grandpa lived like across the railroad tracks from Burkholder. So I'd take it down there, leave it in their backyard, walk to school from their house, and then go back over there and get it every day.
The 2-stroke engine from hell.
Yeah, that thing was a nightmare, but it was a little bit of freedom for, especially being in middle school. Now that I have kids that are in high school, actually, all my older kids are about to be in high school because the middle schoolers are now going to be 9th graders. It's something I regret. I haven't been more aggressive with my kids, especially the more we talk about it. Is we definitely, if we wanted something, Dad and Mom did a really good job of. It's probably more of a necessity at the time for them. Like, he needed extra help anyways, right? Like,
we were gonna be doing it no matter what.
Yeah.
He did a good job of incentivizing us and making it seem like it was our idea.
Yeah, and then rather than him just buying us stuff and us not doing anything for it, it was we were working for it, and that I'm super grateful for. And I need to do a better job with that with my kids. I've had them come and help a couple times over the summers here and there, and I've always done a bad job because I'm not the one actually, like, owns the business and controls the business accounts and can cut checks for payroll and stuff. I've always slacked on paying them quickly. So then all of a sudden their interest in coming was crap because it's like, well, when are we going to get paid for the last 3 times we went down there? It's like, okay, let me get a check from grandma, and then things happen and it doesn't happen. And so that's something for the rest of the summer because they're kind of on their beginning of summer, like, trips right now. They just went to grandparents' houses. Aiden just went camping, and now he's out visiting another family member in California right now. The girls just got back from Oklahoma. Now they're in Utah for a softball tournament. They should all be back for the rest of the summer after this week. So I'm going to be having them come in more.
The 4th.
Huh?
Are they going with Mom and Dad on the 4th?
Well, I'm sure they got a little trip here or there, but that's only a couple days, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and the 4th we won't be open anyways. But yeah, so that's something I'm excited to have them come help some more this summer and actually get it to where they're getting paid weekly. And I'm going to stop just handing them stuff because I've been bad at that. Like, us being in the position to be able to just buy our kids stuff and not make them work for it. I mean, your kid's still young enough where
Yeah, but I've gotten really lucky though, because Luca absolutely just loves coming to the shop. I mean,
Yeah.
he literally has a wrap shop set up in the house. I've come home the past couple days, and I even did it the last because like he comes to work with me like once a week now. Last week, I literally the babysitter was he brought a bunch of his little scale cars, and then I went over to the bay where we had a bunch of scrap film. I grabbed like 5 different colors and dropped it in front of him. He was ecstatic. Now, like almost all of his little cars are either like 'cause he chops up little pieces that he puts on and wraps it, and like
What's he chopping it up with? Did you give him an OFA?
no,
Or?
he's got some kid scissors.
Oh, okay.
He's got some kid scissors. He ain't getting an open anytime soon. He'll get it eventually, but not right now. But no, he wraps those, and like even the other day it was hilarious. He wanted me to sit down and rap with him. I was like, absolutely. So we both he had I think there was 2 like little Vipers. So like he had his and I had mine. I went and got my OFA, and then I have a little torch lighter that I use like for cigars. And I walked over, like I'm over there like wrapping this little scale car, like I'm taking a full piece and wrapping the entire hood to the bumper.
Set a
all the way around.
tripod up and record this next time, dude. Come
I
on.
have already believe me, I already have some photos, like even from like even this morning before I took off the go to work. I took a photo of him. He's sitting there, and he's got the little Fusion orange squeegee. He cuts up his little things, and then he puts it on. And he's taking even a step further, where I'm like, he's like pulling the vinyl off. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, customer didn't like that color. He wants this color. So he's so into it, and it's
That's
so like
awesome.
watching him do that. It's like, all right, I see. I'm gonna let him just love this right now, and I do need to start incorporating some kind of monetary value for him, at least to start teaching him that system. Like you're gonna come to work. Here's something that's satisfy. Like even if it's like for like the day, even a couple like for him, like he gets like 4 quarters. He's like, dude, I'm gonna put that in my piggy bank. And it's anything like I saw a reel that is like with that same system. Don't ever keep the value the same, but at the same time, give them the option of like, all right, are we gonna spend it? Are you gonna save it? I forget what the third option was, but if they choose to save it, match it.
Yeah.
Then match it within. So now you're starting to teach him like the value of saving money to where eventually he can go eventually buy something for himself, because that is one thing I do need to start going after now. So it's more instilled because like I said, he loves coming to the shop. He walks in, like as soon as he walks in, what's up, Dylan? What's up, Jordan? And it's like, and he's, says hi to everybody. He's super stoked to be on. Like, if anything, I have to entice him to leave. Like, hey, buddy, we got to go. No, I want to stay. I'm like, buddy, we gotta go though. And then usually I just break out like, do you want your milk? And he's like, all right, later, guys. He grabs his cup and he hops in the truck and then we go home. But yeah, no, very, very happy with. I have a bunch of photos and I have some videos of him doing it. And every time I catch him doing it, I have one video. I think Michelle posted it, and that was when he was at the shop, and he's got like a Tint Wiz hat on. Like he's like super stoked. Like we just got the new work shirts for the for all the installers, and like I walked into the house yesterday. We just got back from New York, so like I hadn't seen him in about I think 3 or 4 days, and like he opens the door and he is stoked about my shirt. Like he was happy to see me too, but like he's like, oh my god, that is so cool. Like, is that mine? I'm like, no, it's not yours. But we had Michelle. I know Michelle is ordering a bunch of the kid sizes though,
Oh,
so
cool.
the boys, Matthew, William, Alex, Miller, they can all, because like Luca wants a shirt so bad.
Yeah.
He is absolutely in love with work, and like he has his little plastic phone too, where like, and it's something that I need to catch myself on, where if I am at home working and it's like technically I'm still on the clock, I'm still making phone calls, still scheduling stuff. And I've explained it to him too. Like at this time, all right, daddy's done. And then, we can do whatever you want. But like he'll walk up to me while I'm on the phone. If I'm on the customer, I'll be like, hey, buddy, one moment. And he's gotten extremely patient with doing that. But now I'll walk up to him, I'll start talking to him, and he's got his plastic phone. He goes, Daddy, one moment. And like he continues an entire conversation and then hangs up. He's like, okay, they're done. Hey, what's up? And it's just like, all right, you are mimicking literally everything I do right now.
Yeah, they're little sponges, man.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
crazy. I had Matthew in the shop with me Sunday to tint Spud's truck, and
You get video of it?
no. But I mean, he didn't really help that much. He was more asking to get Skittles and M&Ms from the machine up front. Although I
Pick
did
up that trash. You want that quarter,
yeah,
bud.
I did have him help me squeegee the back windows because he wanted to help, and he kept climbing into Spud's truck. But yeah, I'm excited to bring him in more too. But the older kids, I think, can actually be helpful right now. So All right, so that's kind of like the younger years kind of stuff. Um, After I left, I know. I mean, what grade were you in?
When you joined the military? Oh,
2006.
6. Me and Brittany had just started dating.
So you were what, a junior?
Junior.
Okay, and you were already tinting pretty much full time when you weren't
Oh,
at
yeah.
school.
I was full time, but then I was still playing baseball, so full time to a point, but like during the summer, full time when it came down to it. And at that point, just trying to make money. I mean, not to say like I was trying to get out of the household, but like in my eyes, the goal was turn 18, go buy a house.
Yeah,
You know, at least move out when it came down to it. Like I couldn't get. I'm not saying that it was nothing bad that drove me to want to get out of the house, but I was craving the independence. I wanted to get out.
yeah.
You know.
Well, that was. It's kind of a weird time for me to think back on because I think back on it now, and I was so young and dumb and just wanted to get away that I didn't realize the weight of what I was doing at the time to dad, and then let alone even you, because I was a primary installer at the time and just couldn't handle it and left and kind of left everybody hanging. Dad didn't really say it as much at the time. He's told me since that how much that strain that put on him out of nowhere, and I know that that bled onto you too. What do you remember about that time, especially after you graduated?
Um, Business as usual. I would say Dad did a really good job of not showing it. Like I don't think until maybe me and him started getting into it when I was probably a year or two out of high school, where me and him, there were numerous occasions where like I had walked out the front door of the shop and I was like, I'm done. Like I'm just, and it was more likely he wanted to empower me, but wasn't. You know, just dad, unfortunately, with his micromanaging, where it's like asking me to do a task, and then me, even before I can even attempt to do the task, it's already being done by him. And it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, if you want me to do something, awesome. But at the same time, if you're going to beat me to it and not even give me any time to do anything, like, I'm done. Like, I remember one thing we got into was installing on a house, and like, I think there was like a $7 discrepancy about taxes or some shit like that. And I took it upon myself just to cash the lady out for what it was. Like, I'm not going to sit there and argue with her about it. And it was all good. And then, like, he lost his shit on me because of it. And then I think eventually, I think he called the customer, and he eventually admitted to me. I think it was either a couple weeks later. At some point, he admitted to me like that it wasn't worth the arguing with the customer, because that was my thing. I was like, what? Who cares? Like,
Yeah,
if in his eyes, he thought, oh, the customer's getting one over on you, over what, $7, and maybe doing an extra window.
yeah, that's not worth anybody's time.
Exactly. And it was things like that that got me and him at each other's throats. And
Yeah, I can relate to that.
yeah, so I mean, thankfully it never got too far, and it was one of those things where I had thoughts once or twice about I'm done. Like, I'm out. Like, I can go figure something out. I don't, and I'm happy that obviously we worked through it.
Yeah, no,
But
I give you huge props for being able to do it without having to go out on your own and grow up and being able to actually stick around and deal with him and get to the point that you guys did have a really good working relationship by the time I came back.
no, it took time. It took time. It took a lot of battles of me and him back and forth. And it usually took, and I ended up finding out through going through those things. For Dad, it was he needed at least 24-hour period. And then all of a sudden he'd cool down, and then we'd have a conversation. And then things would it'd get mended, and then we'd move on. And then eventually we'd butt heads again. And I mean, I look back at it now, I was young and dumb. But, you know.
Yeah, we all were. We're going to say that about ourselves 10 years from now, right now.
Most likely. But yeah, no, he did. Both him and Mom did a great job of, I'd say, masking that, I guess, of anything of the strain or anything within, losing the installer. Because I think at the time, I was starting to install, and I think that's when Brennan was being brought into the company too.
Was Henry was still with us?
Henry was still there. Henry ended up, I think, leaving. I think when me and Brennan started installing heavily, because it started cutting into, obviously, his flow of work when it came down to it. And
Yeah, and that's always the struggle in this industry is like if you want to grow, you need more people, but then when it slows down, more people means not enough for everybody to continue to eat through the winter. So Yeah, that's something that hasn't gone away. So anybody out there that's still in that beginning struggle phase, like that's just kind of part of what it is. And I think something that we've learned in the last couple of years of trying to add on installation power and then having a down winter and seeing the results of that, where I think we're leaning more now towards trying to figure out ways to cultivate good relationships with subcontractors if
Yep.
we have overflow, not worry about necessarily losing the work if we can keep our main crew of guys busy and hopefully not seasonally through the year. If we have somebody that we can use that we trust as a subcontractor that's going to keep up to our quality standards.
Which we thankfully we do have. We
Yeah.
already do have a good network of people that, I mean, across the country, that if we ever were to land
Clip this.
we were able to land an excessive amount of jobs or land a big job itself, we have the network of subcontractors, of guys
Totally.
that I would hire them in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But they already have their own operation, or if not their operation, their installers, which we already have had discussions, or I've already started those discussions where when it comes down to it, if we need the installers, we have the people.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's finding guys that want to go after or wanting to come in and do residential work when it does come down to it. Because right now we're heavy in residential. We do have a good amount of commercial, but a lot of the subcontracting network across our country is giant commercial jobs.
Yeah, you got to make it worth their time to travel and spend a week or two in another location. And big commercial work is where that's at for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. Like I've talked about it with Brittany in the past, and like not anytime recently. Like I could go make what I probably make right now, maybe make more than what I make right now, just being a subcontractor and go installing. But with that comes I'm going to be gone, technically altogether, months throughout the year. Be gone for a couple weeks, come back. Go on for a couple weeks, come back. To where all I have to worry about is go hang film. But I can only do that for so long. Your
Yeah.
body can only take that punishment for so long, and then it's like I enjoy installing. I really do. I enjoy being able to go onto a project where I just have to install, and I can put headphones in and just tint, and that's the only worry I have for the day when it comes down to it. But thankfully, just like lucking into being an installer and actually enjoying what I do, and then realizing like, you know, I'm pretty good at this. Like I'm efficient. I can get the job done. I've now lucked into the same thing of the new role in the company, which is, you know, just trying to run daily operations and try to prop up everybody around me and help our installers get jobs done more efficiently, help the sales force with any information they need to help close a job. Like I thoroughly do enjoy doing it. Yes, it comes with its stresses, but everything in life is going to have stresses. Like you're not going to find anything that's like, oh, this is, I just get to go do this 9 to 5 and, you know, make this amount, and it's just everything's all easy and beautiful. It's like, yeah, that's in my eyes, it's a pipe dream that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
There's going to be stresses and everything.
Yeah, there's no growth without some struggle. Like no matter what it is, you're trying to gain muscle, you gotta lift some weights and stress your body repeatedly for a consistent period of time. Running, whatever it is.
Ultra running cemented that for me, or at least has helped really cement it for me. In that fact, I think just obviously going through the ups and downs of business in general, through the years of just being an installer and then moving up the ladder and then having my failures and then hopefully trying to learn from them and get better, getting into ultra running, which thank you for that, has cemented that even further. Just because I look back on when I started doing just running in general and actually ran my first marathon in 2019 to then falling down the rabbit hole of ultras, like the big enticing thing for me was like, can I push myself physically to do it? And it's like I already see people doing it, so physically it's definitely possible. Yep. So now it becomes, can I mentally push myself to do this stuff? And like getting through those races and getting through the extreme low parts of those races, it's like, all right, I want to drop out in this race right now. I don't want to stop what I'm doing. But if I just keep going a little bit longer, you know, I could maybe turn this around. And it's like you go for another mile, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm good to go. And you hit that high, and you just cruise along. And then beyond that, and then all of a sudden you hit that low again. It's like, all right, this is only going to last.
Sounds like business to me.
Yeah. So was it that meme of the kid who's got the little Nerf gun? He pulls back on it. It's like what running a small business is like. He turns the Nerf gun back and shoots himself.
Yeah.
Like that meme sums it up about perfectly.
Yeah.
Like it's that constantly every single day.
That's definitely what I love about ultra running and just running in general is it is a mental it's physical, which is going to benefit your mental state because you're keeping your body physically fit or getting it physically fit. But it's all ultimately, it's not even the race, right? It's the, how many weeks is your training plan up for this race right now?
I'm in week 20 right now.
Yeah, of something.
24.
Yeah, so you're going to have 24 weeks of training on top of the last 3 or 4 years of training consistently to go do a 30-hour event that,
Hopefully.
yeah.
Hopefully 30 hours would be great.
What time, what's the cutoff on this one?
36.
Oh, okay. So
So
under,
technically one of the more lengthier
what'd you
ones.
finish it in last time?
33:57.
Okay, so do you have a goal for this one?
Beat 33:57.
That's it.
Actually, technically, my eyes just finished.
Okay.
And with this race, it's just finished. Tahoe scares the hell out of me. The elevation gain. Beautiful trail.
Is there sketchy spots? This is the one race you've done. I haven't gotten to really see the
No,
course.
the trail's gorgeous. Like there is the Red Cabin Loop, which everyone leading up to the start of this race, I was talking to as many of the runners as I could, and they all were saying that's the hardest part. It's about, I want to say 30 plus miles in, and you get to an aid station, and then you run down into pretty much like a little canyon, and you run around this red cabin. That's why it's the Red Canyon Loop, or Red Cabin Loop, and it's about, I think, 3 miles from running down and then back up. And like I kept asking her, like, what's so hard about it? Like, the heat, because when you get to it in that part of the day, the sun is out and it is hot. I'm like,
Fully
well, hot.
exposed.
I'm from Vegas, like I can tolerate that. And then it was the condition of the trail, super rocky, where it's like, I run in Vegas.
Yeah, you can deal with that too.
Every trail is rocky in Vegas when it comes down. There are beautiful trails out there, but for the most part, where we train, McCullough Trail, it's super rocky in multiple areas that we train on constantly. So it's like, it was a small taste of something like, oh, I already do this constantly. And it's early enough in the race to where it's not really bothersome.
Yeah.
But like, I understood why people hated it. Like it got hot as hell to going down in there. And like going to that race too, I didn't wait to make adjustments like I did in the first race.
Yeah.
Rocky Raccoon, I ran that first loop with shoes that I probably should have ditched within the first 5 to 10 miles. At least 10, because that's when I saw you guys again. I should have waited at that 10-mile marker and waited for the shoes that I wanted to put on. Because by the time I finished that loop, I'd already developed some hot spots on my feet. And then same thing happened with the shoes I switched into. I didn't loosen the shoe because I was afraid of, I don't know why. I was scared of loosening the shoe for some reason. And that's where like I kind of screwed up my right foot a little bit, where like the top spot of my foot was numb for like 3 months after that race. And eventually the feeling came back into it, but I could feel my feet swelling, and I wish I would have adjusted my shoe and made that small adjustment. And then in Tahoe, I made those small adjustments. Like all of a sudden going down into that loop, I had 2 shirts on, because you start at, I think I actually moved it at 5 in the morning, because I think it's a month later than it was the last time I ran it. I had 2 shirts on. I had a long sleeve and I had a short sleeve. Well, how I was running, I could feel my vest rubbing on my chest, and I could feel like, oh shit, this is gonna be a problem. I'm gonna have a rub spot. I'm gonna have a hot spot on my chest. And as I was going down, I was like, okay, it's just 3 miles. I'll do it when I get back up to the aid station. And I was like, nope. Step to the side, took off the shirts, only went down to 1 shirt, solved the problem instantly. And then I took that mindset the rest of the race. Like anytime I felt like I had a hot spot between my thighs or I was chafing anywhere, instantly stopped, put anti-chafe on. And it's like that extra 60 seconds or 120 seconds I was using to stop and make that adjustment, in the long run made the world of differences. Because I would have just I was like, oh, well, I'll just do it at the next aid station. Yeah. And it's like, no. This isn't a sprint. I mean, it's not even a marathon. Like it's 4 marathons. Like take the time to make that small incremental adjustment, and it is going to save you in the long run. Like I did not crash and burn in Tahoe at all.
Yeah.
Like that was one thing Brittany told me every time she did see me. She goes, you looked like a different person. And I was like, well, first off, the first race I overtrained. Like I was so far like amped up to go do that race that, and also with COVID and the races being canceled, technically I had like maybe like a 12 to 14 month training block to finally get to my first 100-mile race. Like I was trying to stay ready the entire time, and then race gets canceled. Try to get the next race gets canceled. And I finally found the race I was going to get it to. It was in Texas. I knew Texas wasn't going to cancel anything.
Yeah.
And then got to it, and I didn't realize I overtrained until I ran Tahoe, and actually bought a training program from Zach Bitter and did his training program. And then like I was afraid I didn't have enough miles on my legs going to Tahoe, but I was like, you know what? knows what he's talking about, does this for a living. He's been one of the top ultra runners in the country. Like, trust the process.
Well, everything you just said, I can totally in my mind relate to business. Like, same thing. Like, as you come across problems, don't put stuff off. Address it immediately. You know, if you're heading in the wrong direction, the best time to turn around is now. Like, 'cause every mile further you go in the wrong direction is just you're gonna have to backtrack that, right? Hiring someone to mentor you and take advice from someone who's been where you haven't been before, like, all of those things apply directly to business.
That was my biggest, like when we got offered the fact of being able to do the one-on-one mentorship with Ryan, like in my mind, it was already decided, like we're doing this. But at the same time, it was my job to convince everyone. I already knew you were convinced. A lot of times when it comes to those decisions, unfortunately, if I don't talk to you, it's because I already know where this conversation is going to go. I already know you're for it, which is it's great to have that person. And then I got to talk to Nichelle, which Nichelle is more likely, I usually know she's in on it, but she wants to know what's going to be the benefit. How are we going to use this asset to the best of our abilities? And then with Mom, it's getting past the
Sticker shock.
well, yeah, the financial part of it and the fact of, but explaining like why do we need this? Well, why are we going to stumble for the next couple of years trying to figure this out ourselves when we can bring someone on and learn directly from someone who's already done this? Same thing with like what came with ultra running, buying that program from Zach Better is, dude's already done it over and over and over again. Pineda's doing it over and over and over again. We already saw the success and what he already taught us when it came to the podcast.
Yeah.
And how they laid that out and already laid the groundworks of like he's already tested and iterate, test. And he's already made those changes, and we were learning directly from him and his team.
Yeah.
Like, so why not expand this relationship even further and learn even more from him?
Yeah.
And it's only been what, a month and a half, and already in my eyes, it's already the couple conversations we've had with them, and like it was already worth it.
Yeah, no,
Like-
totally. That whole process has been amazing, especially because we can be polar opposites on certain stuff sometimes, but I think we understand where each other's coming from. The very first thing he had us do was like a personality test, which just confirmed what we kind of already knew, but it was like, all right, yeah, you should be in this role and you should be in this role. Yep. And then that couple little pain points on decisions we needed to make right at the moment on pivots that need to be made in the business. We were able to present it to him, what our thinking was, and get his feedback on what should be done. And it made it really easy for everybody to just be like, all right, cool, that's what we're doing.
Yep.
Like knowing what metrics to be looking at and tracking. And same thing for running, right? Like Zach Bitter's plan was probably a lot about heart rate and zones and effort. And like
Not
you said,
about distance.
I don't think most people
focused.
understand and that's the common mistake I think a lot of people make is like, all right, increase your mileage. Okay, but what paces are you running that at? What heart rate zones are you in? Do you know what your zones are? Have you actually tested for that? And how much of that mileage that you're getting in is junk miles because you're running in the wrong heart rate zone and you're just beating your body up? Same thing for paying attention to your COGS or what are your true profit margins and all of those things. Like having
Close
someone that's
rate, cart value, all those. It's
that's the same thing as going to the Hermosi workshop. Like that totally changed my perspective on what we need to focus on as far as going through their little workflow they had from that workshop, the WHAM. Identifying where is your constraint, because there's always a constraint. No matter what it is you're doing, you're gonna be doing something right in business, hopefully, and your business is growing, and then all of a sudden you're gonna hit a plateau, and now you've kind of hit a new bottleneck. What is that constraint, and how can you make an adjustment on it, and where do you have the most leverage to apply? Like that totally changed like what I was looking at as far as I had the belief that we need to massively increase marketing and ramp up lead generation, which is important and is needed. But if your offer's wrong and your lifetime value and the profit that you're actually making on those leads that are coming in is wrong, you're just chasing your tail around. But if you can make that adjustment on your offer and figure out that, okay, our pricing is wrong, we haven't actually gone back through and looked at those numbers, made the adjustments on what we should be charging because material costs have gone up, labor costs have gone up, and we've just been guessing. It's kind of like training for an ultra without
Yeah.
having an expert. And getting that feedback and looking at what metrics to follow, just like heart rate, and understanding that, like, if you can get that advice from someone who's been there, done that, rather than just stumbling through it on your own,
Thinking you know everything.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, makes no sense. Like if you look at the people that are at those different levels of the game, of whatever you want to call it, they have all went through those different areas, and then there is always a way to level up.
Yeah.
And getting out of your own way and realizing that you don't know everything, you're not going to know everything, and you should be learning from everyone around you at all times. Like again, something I wish I would have gotten the grasp of more, especially going to like all the panorama meetings I've went to. I got more of it later on in the last couple I've gone to, and like the first ones, like when I was in my early 20s, it was free booze and free food. Woo! Let's go have some fun. Where I'd like the next day I'd miss a couple workshops because we were all out way too late. And yes, still networking and talking with people, but at the same time, could have gotten a lot more value out of those. A lot more value. But at the same time, wouldn't change anything at all because if I did, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
Yeah.
So, the pains suck. It's never fun. But at the same time, it's are you going to learn from it? Are you going to grow from it?
So, was it 2017? That's the
15.
15. So we've mentioned this a couple of times. So, what got you to that point, and then coming from there till now, what have been the biggest changes that you've seen in yourself and how you look at business?
Well, I mentioned it before. 2015, I got confronted by you guys. Very pivotal part in my life, I would say. I was running my life into the ground. Obviously, not noticing it while I was doing it, but from either taking Adderall, gambling, even just a whole myriad of things. Unfortunately, walking into the house and seeing you guys sitting there, thinking that I just had gotten away with, technically taking advantage of my in-laws, and then just thinking I'm going to get a slap on the wrist type thing, and then getting approached by everybody. It was a very tough pill to swallow. Took a couple of years to actually start earning trust back. The changes from there to now, I look back at that person and I'm disgraced by it. The relationships I probably hurt and burned. I don't know, it's one of those things that like I look back on it and biggest thing in my life I wish I could change. It almost cost me my marriage. And thankfully I have an amazing wife. Stood by me.
Now, don't be so hard on yourself. Just like you were just saying before, the bad shit made you who you are now.
Yeah, I mean,
think you're pretty good right now.
That's why it's just one of those things. Just every once in a while I'll catch myself thinking about it, and it's just more like that beating myself up of just being disgraced in the type of person I guess I was, and maybe holding in a bunch, I guess, and I don't know. It's just always thinking that I'd be able to catch up to something or correct it, or thinking that I could get my way out of it, just overspending, putting myself in a financial hole. Yeah,
That's a common problem a lot of people come across, because I've definitely been there, done that multiple times. Maybe not with the Adderall, but I definitely, you make a little bit more, you feel like you're on cloud nine, then you start spending more, and before you know it, your bills catch up with you. And I think that's a lesson that everybody wishes they could learn earlier in life, and unfortunately most of us have to go through that mistake, and sometimes multiple times.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's one of those things where at that point, obviously, being at that low, I did not think that obviously it's like I to climb my way out of it. It was what I needed at the time. I remember Dad telling me, like, I'm never going to forget this day. Thinking that the day that he got to save me. And he was right. Without that happening, I think I would have just driven my life into the ground, because I was already on the way of doing it. Thankfully, I have, like I said, amazing wife, amazing family, amazing friends that all stood by and supported me, helped me get through those times. I kept a lot of that clammed in, and a lot of people didn't know about it. And I've been more open about it more recently than anything else, just to show people that, or at least present to people that it doesn't matter kind of where you're at. You definitely have to be willing to make the changes and actually put the work in. And I said it was a couple of years of like I had to earn my wife's trust back. I had to earn a lot of people's trust back, and I think it showed me how to. It's a day at a time type thing, and you slowly just grind it out and just keep doing the right thing. Eventually, things will turn around. Keep putting the hard work in. Like I thought I was a good producer, and which I did. I did get work done for the most part, but I also look back. Also, the relationships I burned within the business too. Um, Big one would be like we've talked about a couple different times. Adrian.
Yeah.
That's to me was a failure of leadership. Edward, failure of leadership.
Yeah.
I thought I was doing my job in leading. I look back, no, definitely wasn't. I was doing the opposite of a leader. But you only know what you know. Thankfully, you came around with the ultra running and all that stuff at the right times, the absolute perfect times in my life to start pushing me in those directions. Goggins, Jocko.
What's funny is to me in my mind of like how kind of all that played out is I got obsessed with it, and like I do with most things, then I start like preaching it and almost like evangelicalizing it. I just butchered that word, but however you're supposed to use that word. um, uh, and once I had the light bulb moment of like fucking just do it, right? Like I feel like I finally got my shit dialed in and lost a bunch of weight, and I maybe was still talking about like eating keto and stuff a lot all the time and how sugar is poison, and I don't think I'm wrong about that, but I think there's certain sets and settings, and depending on what you're doing, you can have certain amounts of sugar, and I've gotten back to eating more sugars and still keeping the weight off, but I don't know. It's weird because I feel like that was like a moment in time that I can still see the trickle effects happening now of like, don't preach to people on ways to do shit. Just do it, get to work. And if it's working and your life improves and gets better and people can see that, yeah. And Jordan's reminding me about how crazy I was for Bernie Sanders. All right, we're gonna go there. We're gonna go there. Screw it. This might be the viral moment of the podcast. So that was huge growth for me. Honestly, like I did get insanely into politics right before that time frame. Actually, that actually led into my like little aha moment was I was 240 pounds, out of shape, preaching to everybody how we need to vote for somebody because they're gonna save us all. And then fortunately at the time, that didn't happen and he didn't win. And I, at the time, saw somebody get into office that I believed the media hype that was like the devil and the government's not coming to help. And that was kind of like an aha moment for me to be like, well, I guess I got to take care of me right now. And realizing, actually listening, I don't know if Andy Stumpf was on yet at the time, but he's definitely one of the people, Cleared Hot podcast, talking about area of concern and like area that you can actually affect, and looking at like if everything in the world that you can be concerned about was a dartboard and the only thing you can control is the bullseye. Most people are spending way too much time focusing on those outer rings and wasting their time while the center of that bullseye just gets smaller. Where if you focus on the center and actually start improving yourself and where can you do better and take ownership. Jocko, take ownership for stuff. Jordan Peterson, clean your own room before you start preaching to others to do like that will really have an effect because you for sure can actually affect those things. You can for sure get in shape. You can for sure be a good example, not only to your wife and kids and brothers and sisters and people around you that you're working with or whatever, but that'll start to spread out. And now maybe you're running your business more effectively and you can hire more people and like all that starts to spread. And now all of a sudden your area that you can affect is growing. Yeah. That was like a huge moment for me. And then seeing you actually get into running and then follow it through to the point that now you're dusting my ass and I still haven't even finished 100 miler is like a really proud big brother moment for me. I don't take credit for it because you've done all the work, but it's cool to see that it spread a little bit. And it's really fun to go out and go to your races and just be crew and have Brooke go out there and see her like soak that up and now take it on to her running, where I think a big part in the running success she's had is having an uncle that she can go watch run these races and go be part of the crew. And, you know, the backyard ultra where we got to run a couple 4-mile loops with you and see people running 4-mile loops over and over and over again for a whole day, like 24 hours until somebody finally stops. Like, those are huge impacts on seeing, like, okay, maybe my beliefs might be limited on what is possible. This person's doing it, and I see where this person was 4 years ago. Like, okay, this can be done. Like, pictures of you from when you were big, I come across every now and then on my phone in my cloud, like, blows my mind. Like, just from a couple of years ago, you were a pretty big dude. I was a pretty big dude, and seeing how long you've kept it off and how committed you've been and how you are being a good role model to your son through doing these things, it's really cool to see it.
That was, I would say, after 15 to 18. Obviously, that was 3 years of just trudging through. I wouldn't say trudging through shit, but close enough. Of knowing that it's like there is nothing to hide behind. I just have to now start kind of putting work in, keep working on myself, and doing that little by little, getting myself to a good spot, getting into running. And then, like, right before 2018, I had gotten myself to a point where I just wanted to do a marathon. Again, you getting on the ultra kick, and then all I could hear you talk about was ultras. All I wanted to do was not an ultra. I just wanted to run a marathon. In my eyes, like, I just want to run a marathon. I wanted to qualify for Boston. I want to go run Boston, which is still on my bucket list, which I will do one day. But that, towards the tail end of that, and then me and Brittany putting us getting into a really good spot, me being in a really good spot, putting our house on sale. And at the time, we were trying to have a kid, ended up having a miscarriage, which nothing will prepare you for that. And then, it's one of those things you end up finding out after it happens. It's like you find everyone coming out of the woodwork and the fact, like, dude, that's normal.
Yep.
But through that, we had a second miscarriage, and then at that point we were like, we're just going to work on ourselves. We worked on just going to do things by ourselves, having fun, and then we ended up putting our house on the market, and then at that time we were able to then get pregnant, and then that's the conception of Luca. And then 2018 when he was born, I'll never forget that night. Holding him in my arms for the first time. It was kind of at that point I realized that, like, I'm not going to say I'm going to do the marathon. I'm going to do the marathon. Like, I have a direct influence now on my son. Like, just like Dad had an influence on us, I understood that holding him. And I signed up for that marathon that night. Like, I remember it extremely vividly. Like, him being born and us being in our room and me holding him. I instantly I was running with the devil, hopped on the website, signed up for that race. Because I've slowly but surely, as much as I know my wife's probably beat it into my head, but she's been right the entire time of kind of how I operate. She knows me better than anyone in the world. But I'm definitely in the mindset, like, I have to have something. I know as much as Goggins will say that's nonsense, but, like, at least for me to get the ball rolling, to start realizing different aspects of who I am in my life, like, I do need something to kind of go after. That's just kind of my personality. And I'm definitely the type of personality, if I'm starting, this is beat into me from Dad, if you're going to start something, finish it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I signed up for the race, I paid for it, and if I paid for it, damn certain I was going to toe that line. If I was going to be ready or not, that was going to be up to me if I actually put the damn time in. So that race was in June. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's probably running within this weekend or next weekend too, because it happens every summer. Runs right in between Vegas and Pahrump. It's about like 96 degrees during that race too. That's why they call it running with the devil, obviously.
You did it last year. Me and Brooke ran the 10K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing that race and actually, like, finally and that's when I think really when the Goggins and everything kicked in hard, is because I started Rogan. I couldn't get anywhere near listening to Rogan's podcast because it was just like hearing over and over again who we need to vote for, what we needed to eat. And I was just like, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear about Rogan. And then I finally started listening to certain episodes. I think the first couple episodes listening, I think the first one was Goggins. And then listening to Goggins' talk, it's one of those things. He's either not for you or he speaks to you. It definitely spoke to me. And then after listening to both his podcasts, I couldn't listen to quick enough when it came down to it. And then I instantly jumped into his book. And then while I was training for my marathon, I finally listened to Born to Run, and then I listened to Goggins. And through both those, that's when the introductory of ultras, like from a different perspective, or from a different person, listening about ultras and what can and can't be done with your body. After running that first marathon in June, crossing that finish line, having my son there, getting to hold him, and watching, in which I've said this I know numerous times, and every time I talk to people about running too, during that race, I think it was mile 18 coming back up the hill, because it's an out and back marathon race, and you come back up a pretty significant hill on the way back in. I was running next to this older, when I say running, walking, I was walking next to this older gentleman, which had to have been in his late 60s, maybe 70s. And it wasn't that he necessarily was fit, he looked older, and he just kind of like just moseying along. And like I was looking at the bib, and I knew each bib, you can see what each person's running just by the color of the bib, the color scheme. And I knew he was running the 50K. And like at that point, I was pretty smoked, and I was hurting, and got to the point of finishing, crossed the finish line. And at that point, I was definitely done. I was in pain. And to see him go grab his go bag, go into it, and then head back out, like he still had 4.5 more miles, something like that, to run. So he still had to go out and back in to finish his 50K. I mean, it was like that was an aha moment for me of, I want to know what that feels like. Yeah. And from there, it just grew from the marathon to instantly I signed up for the Area 51K. And then from that 51K to the 50-mile trail trashed. Went and ran that, which that was another, like each race I've ran has slowly built me to the point of getting to the 100-mile distance. But even during that race, I remember calling you to that race and telling you, like, I'm done. Like, my right knee was killing me.
Oh, the 50-miler.
Like
me and Brooke
18,
met you at before you finished and came back in and finished with you.
I hadn't even started my second loop yet, and my right knee was killing me. It was like about 2 to 3 weeks prior, during training, that all of a sudden my right knee started hurting. So I backed off of training, and I was just like, all right, I'll take 2 weeks off, be real light. And then by the start of the race, my knee felt good. And I knew I gotta keep my heart rate at a certain spot, don't run too hard. And then halfway through that race was just an tremendous amount of pain. And like I remember calling you, and you talked me off the ledge. And then I continued to go, and eventually I ran into someone like, you good? I'm like, yeah, my right knee's killing me. And they tossed me some Tylenol. And I was like, all right. I don't care. Whatever I have to do to finish this race, I want to finish this race. Ate some Tylenol, finished the first loop, got in. They had aid station, do you need anything? Which usually the aid stations won't give you anything because technically just for liability reasons. I was like, do you have any Advil or Tylenol? They had Advil. So I took a handful of Advil from them and then was taking Advil from that point on just to deal with my knee pain. Finished that race, went and got my knee checked out by Max, now at Align Physical Therapy. Go check him out.
Which where all my kids go to. Also.
Yeah,
Actually,
and this is when Max was working. He was doing, I'm pretty sure I don't know if he was fresh off his clinical hours, I'm pretty sure, but he was working for somebody. And he felt my knee. I went and saw him. He saw me on the weekend. It was just pretty much just like a buddy checking me out. Like he felt my knee. He's like, I don't feel anything structurally wrong. And then he started moving my legs around. He was like, dude, your IT bands are wound so goddamn tight right now. And then he showed me a bunch of stretches to do. And he started explaining to me, with your IT band being that tight, that wraps all the way down into your knee. Your body thought it was telling you to stop running by any means necessary because of how tight that band was. And that runs into your knee, and that was what was causing your knee pain. You need to start working on your lower back. And he gave me a bunch of things to do, which I implemented. And since that point, I don't think I've ever had knee pain again because I started working on those other areas.
Yeah.
And then from the 50-miler, that's when the backyard was my technical first 100K that I did because I ended up making it about 67 miles in that race, finished third, which that race was a blast. I'm really hoping that Josh brings that race back.
If that comes back, I'm doing it.
That would be a race I'd love to do again.
I'm doing that.
And then from there, from backyard, I went straight into, actually not straight into because I'm pretty sure that was in November. And I don't know, yeah, it was straight in because that was the training. That was pretty much a training run to get to the Rocky Raccoon, which is the one that I was able to find that was still open. And then went straight into the Rocky Raccoon. And my long-term goal, like for all my races, is to get to Western States. And like knowing I have to run that qualifier. And then getting to that race, again, you talked me off a ledge on mile 76. Like, I'll never forget that race. Like, did not think I was finishing. To be honest, I thought I had to run it in 30 hours. So like I was doing the math and thinking like I'm not going to finish.
Yeah.
And then like on the drive back to Dallas afterwards, looking up the damn cutoff times, I had 32 hours.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hard one to ever top for me too. The end of that, how it played out, was like almost like being in Goggins' book. It was almost the same mileage too. It was like like mile 70 something is when he sat down and thought he was done, and then got back up and kept going.
Yeah, but that
To
psycho
see-
did it in 18 hours somehow.
Yeah. I'm not comparing times, but still, it was just like the ability for the mind to overcome what the body's telling you and to go much further than you thought was possible. That's the big appeal to ultra running in my mind, is how much more can you do than you think you can do, and it's probably 10x more than what you think you can do. Like, and again, I don't know. I'm really big into the idea of synergy and how many different things can I do in my life that are going to benefit multiple different things. And I instinctually knew that that's going to develop grit and resiliency that'll carry over to being a parent, to running a business, to anything else that you're doing in your life. Is if you can build that mental resiliency to do something that might be 10 times harder than what you previously thought was capable, that's going to free your mind up to think bigger, to do bigger, to accomplish more.
Oh, most definitely has. I look back and without realizing it at those times, realizing what it probably did for me business wise, I couldn't put a value to it. It'd be impossible for me to put a value to it. Show me what can be overcome. And I mean, even from the entire journey from 2015 to 18 to running my first ultra, first 100 miler in 21, and then obviously continuing that journey where it's like every time I finish one of these, like my eyes are already on the next one, and like my wife is just like, do you need to? I'm like, yeah, I do. Especially for the fact that like when it comes to Western states, like I had it built into my mind, which obviously they changed the regulations through COVID because I kind of had to because I had to cancel a year, that if you don't qualify, like I was going off the same rules and regs that Josh was. If you skip one, you lose your tickets.
Is packed? Is that raffle's getting now? I have a feeling they'll bring that back.
I have a feeling it's going to come back too because this was the last year they had extra tickets available. They were able to expand, I think, by like 10 people for the last couple of years because of COVID. So I have a feeling that is going to come back because of how many people are entering the race. Which, looking at it already, I kind of got in at a sweet spot of seeing how many people have entered for the years behind me. Technically, is when you get to year 4. Like for me, I still got to get the job done. I still got to go finish Tahoe, which Tahoe by itself is. It's a monster of a race by itself. Just the altitude. The altitude scares the shit out of me, and it's a healthy amount of fear.
You've done it.
That doesn't mean anything. The year that I did it, one of the guys I trained with, Brian, that you met down at Javelina.
Okay.
He ended up not making it that year, and he'd already finished it too. And he was telling me that he finished it was one of the years that the fires were like pretty close, and he thought they were going to cancel the race. Like that's another thing too. I got to get to the race, and the race has got to happen. Hopefully, no one does anything stupid up in Tahoe and lights a fire because that could literally wipe the race out like that, and then I'm done. And I won't be able to find a qualifier by the end of this year.
Yeah.
But it's a race that he'd already accomplished that like the heat ended up getting to him. And and just like I've gotten, in my eyes, stupidly lucky with all my 100-mile races. Like, yeah, the first one kicked my ass, but the next two after, I haven't had, any GI issues, puking, having to go to the bathroom constantly. Like everything's kind of went according to plan, which scares the hell out of me because it's like no one is safe from that happening eventually. And I've tried to dial everything in to where getting close to race day is very clean diet, but not necessarily too clean because if you introduce something that isn't clean to your diet while you're running just because it may be something you're craving and you can't stomach the food you are eating, and then all of a sudden you eat that and now your stomach is like, what the hell is this? Like that's why I was very happy or okay with eating crappy during my first 100-miler, and then I started cleaning it up for Tahoe because I knew what Tahoe was going to bring, and then I wanted to make sure that my fuel was real clean because I needed to be at the best I possibly could be to get that race done. It's got 26,000 feet of elevation gain. Like it's in the upper end of races. Like every time I mentioned when I did it the first time, like Tahoe, like, ooh, that's a tough one. And like, I was just, I guess, naive. And it's like, well, I trained for it. I'll be able to get it done. And I bumped up to close to some time restraints at a couple of the cutoff times, but made it through it. And for some reason, I have the effect of whenever I have someone pace me, I usually end up drawing the longest I've ever ran out of them.
Yeah.
Like you, for the first time when you paced me, the longest distance you ever ran was 40 miles. It was that race.
Yeah.
In Tahoe, it was Jake and Candace. Jake off the couch covered me for 30 miles in the middle of the night. Like, and he has
he ran a 50K off the couch. That's crazy.
and he does have a running background, so he understands. And he's lived up there, so he understands to a point. But still, like off the couch, 50K, like okay. And then Candace, I knew that all of a sudden she like had all her stuff ready. And she's like, "Oh, I'll help you go up the hill, and then I'm just gonna come back down." And there was a small part in my head where I'm like, "Bullshit! I know Candace. Like she's a sister. Like it's." I knew her. I knew what she was gonna do.
She's ready for you this year, dude. I just got to go on a trail run with her when we were up there for state, and she's ready.
I just gave her the surprising news a couple weeks ago of like, hey, so I know you wanted to do that last 20 miles. I need someone to do the 30 miles in the middle of the night. Which it took her like a day or two to process it, and then we called, and she called me, and we had a conversation, and she's like, I'll do what I can. I'm like, Candace, this is gonna be a lot of walking. I just need you to like keep me company and keep me awake. Like it's, and if anything, I was like, I'm doing you a favor. It's so much cooler in the middle of the night because the last 20 miles of that race.
Way to spin it.
The last 20 miles of that race is you're exposed to the sun, which they've changed the trail, which I'm very excited about. You're no longer running a utility trail on the side of the mountain. You're actually going down a single track that they cut, I think, about 2 years ago. So it's a new single track that you get to run down where there is coverage, and it's not that bad going down the mountain. So, I mean, as much as the last 20 miles of a race isn't that bad. So she's going to cover the 30 miles of me on this one, which is, again, I'm going to extend her longest run ever from 20, which she did 20 miles off the couch, too. Like, in the beginning of that 20 miles, too, is 1,800 feet of elevation gain and 1.8 miles. So you're going straight up. Like, it's just a straight climb.
This is a weird one that I don't think people that are into trail running or really understand. For me, I kind of feel like the elevation gain is a positive because it's a self-governor. Because I think most people make the mistake of, if it is flatter, just running too fast and you run yourself into the ground. Whereas on that elevation gain, you don't have any choice but to kind of be at a brisk walk and hike it. So.
No, it definitely, in the first 10 miles, too, you have to go up. You gain 5,000 feet of elevation in the first 10 miles. So
I got to see that.
It's
Candace
100% like you don't go out hot. If you go out hot, you don't finish the race.
You could see it from the school stadium that the state meet was at. You could like see that, and Candace pointed it out to me.
You start at Western. And you start from Western, and you go straight up. Yeah. And it's like, it's a fun start.
That beginning's wild.
Dude, we ran a half mile. The all group, that just shows you kind of how like group think and the crowds of people just follow the crowd. When that race started, the first people missed the first right turn to hit the trails to start going up that mountain. So we're running, and all of a sudden I'm like perfect. I'm in the back. I don't got to worry about people passing me. And then all of a sudden we're going, and you see all the headlamps turn, and they're all facing you, and you're like, oh shit.
Everybody went the wrong way?
Everyone.
Oh wow.
Everybody. So by the time we turned around, the guys that were in first ended up having to pass everybody, in which they were like just running off the trail, running through bushes and shit just to get past us because they're all going at a pretty fast clip.
Yeah, they're trying to win it.
Well, 2 people finished under 24 hours in that race, and they were both locals, which made sense. Like the guy who won, I think he was from King Beach.
There's only 2 people under 24?
Yeah.
Oh, that is a brutal race.
Oh, I think it was 22 hours and 23 hours.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, no, it's a brutal ass race for a certainty. But beautiful, gorgeous, absolutely. I'm looking forward to get back on the mountain just because of how gorgeous of a run it was, and I get to take more in this time around.
We need a lot more video footage this time.
I will try. I did that for the first couple loops of Javelina, and then like the last loop, I didn't have anything until the very end, and that was one of those things where I knew, okay, I'm gonna finish, and then it was getting super emotional with it. My son was at that race, and being able to cross the finish line and him run that last 3/4 of a mile with me was.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I wish I would have thrown him up on my shoulders, but he wanted to run it, and then I'm in my eyes like, all right, I'm gonna run past you a little bit. I'm gonna finish. I wanted to turn around and have him run into me, and like that was, again, something I won't forget. I mean, I was looking forward to both him because he was like, am I invited to this one? And like Tahoe, you'll see me twice. Like you don't really see me.
Yeah.
I'm up in the mountains constantly, but it was one of those things. We have friends up there, and like Brittany was gonna go hang out with like her best friend, one of her best friends, and like her daughter. Her and Luke have not met yet, so it was like they were gonna get to hang out and stuff. And they'll get to see me finish the crossing finish line, but unfortunate circumstances of passing in the family had changed it to where it's probably something where I'll be going up by myself. And obviously I'll have Candace and I'll have Derek to help me pace stuff. And like if any race, I really don't need anyone there besides my pacers. Like I know what I'm jumping into, but not him not being able to come along with us because I'm like I said, unfortunately we have to go back east for a funeral. But it's one of those things.
All right. Well, I think we're getting close to the end of the time. What is it that you're most excited about for the future of the business and everything we've got going on right now? That's outside of running.
For the business, continuing building what we have been building now for the past like 2 years. Getting the business to the point where it's not dedicated or relied on one single person to operate, including myself. That's the one thing I wish Dad got to experience. Like, like the drop of a dime. Like I have to be gone next week for a majority of the week because of having to go back to the East Coast and knowing that I'm not going to have to worry about the business at all. And I want that for everybody to be able to go take their time off and not worry about the business. Like if you're on vacation and you're on your off time and you didn't be enjoying your family or go and support your family, like it's been extremely helpful knowing that I can look at my wife and look at my mother-in-law and tell them like, don't worry about me and work. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to support you guys. Like that's what family is for, is to be able to do those things and to know that I have such a strong team behind me that the business will roll on just fine. Yeah, I'll be able to bring my laptop with me. I'll still be able to work and do things remotely. Like to keep that culture going and the fact that we're building the business to the point where we can actually go and enjoy things. And not to say that Mom and Dad didn't get to, but I can only imagine the financial burden that they were putting on themselves to present and give us that life that we had with hiding everything of all the stress and everything else that came with the business. Like they did an amazing job. Because I look back at it and I have no fucking clue how they did it.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense. Like I have one kid and I'm like, holy shit, this is expensive.
Yeah, food ain't cheap.
It blows my mind. So continuing growing that culture to where everyone can enjoy themselves on the off times and everyone enjoys coming to work. Like that's another big thing that I want. Like I've seen that growing up through the business, the people we've had come and go, and not at Dad's fault of his, not at fault of Dad at all, but being able to extend that hand of trust and knowing that like being able to prop people up and trust them and allow them to flourish and succeed. Like I don't think I've always looked at it, and I know that you and Michelle have kind of busted his balls a little bit about it. I think, same with Mom too. I think more than likely they unfortunately were burned so many times, just trying to grind it out and figure it out, that it built up a wall with Dad. Like he had technically PTSD when it came to the shop, like of trusting anyone.
Yeah.
Because he had the biggest wall with me. It took me years for him to break through, and let alone after all the bullshit that I pulled in 2014, 15, all those times, like through that, for him to still be able to get to the point of opening up and trusting me again and allowing me to roll with the business and allowing us all to go start like doing that. Like that's my biggest thing, is empowering as many people as I possibly can within the company. I want to watch people grow and succeed.
Yeah,
Like
no.
if everyone's growing and succeeding around me, that only means one thing: that same thing's happening to me too.
Yeah, no, totally. I am right on there with you as far as that goes. Like that's definitely a huge thing for me. And as far as Dad not getting to experience it, he's kind of getting to experience it now. Um, wanting us to get to a point where it doesn't take us 40 years to get there. Like, yeah, I totally agree. And it's cool is that you can see the light on the other side. Alex Hermosi is kind of always talking about that $1 to $3 million gross range being like the just absolute black hole of business, where you're like at a size that you're starting to get to a point where you kind of have to grow, but in order to do it, you got to wear 2 or 3 hats, and you got to be putting in 70, 80-hour weeks. And it's like, I can see us coming out the other end of that in the next couple of years for sure, being able to expand and do the architectural school and maybe have a little bit more time where it's not 70, 80 hours a week dedicated strictly to the business, because I'm very confident the team that we've been building up and everybody that we have now is, for the most part, seems to be happy and in a role they like, and they've got a trajectory to grow. And if we can continue to provide that and help nurture it, and yeah, I'm right there with you. If everybody around us is flourishing and growing and they're able to go take vacations and have fun with their family and then come back to work and be happy about being back, there's nowhere but up.
Yep.
Like, so
Don't take time for granted.
yeah, no, definitely not. But also be patient. Like, it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
But grind when you can.
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot to end it. And we will be back with another episode here shortly. Thanks for joining Born to Tint with the Miller Brothers. Make sure you subscribe, follow along. If you are interested in being on the podcast, whether you're in the tin industry, you're a local business person, maybe we've done work for before or worked with, you're interested in coming on, telling your story, maybe be a little vulnerable, hit us in the DMs, email us, comment on below on this video, whatever means necessary, get a hold of us. We'd love to have people on that have cool stories to tell. Again, whether it's in the tin industry or just someone here local in Vegas that's got a story to tell. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.